He betrayed me the moment I held our newborn daughter in my arms. While I was learning to be a mother, he was seeking attention from another. This story is about the deepest pain, the betrayal after childbirth, and how I found the strength to survive, rise, and never allow myself to be broken again. When I found out I was going to be a mother, the world around me seemed to change. I imagined holding my little daughter in my arms, strolling in the park with my husband, laughing and building our new life. I believed that having a child would make our family even stronger. The delivery was difficult. I remember holding on with my last strength, thinking only of my little one coming into the world healthy. And when I heard her first cry, it seemed that all the pain and fears dissolved in that instant. I looked at her tiny face and cried with happiness. It was a new beginning. But at home, I realized that life had changed forever. Sleepless nights, constant feedings, crying in the middle of the night. I was physically exhausted, my body hadn't recovered from childbirth, but at the same time, a huge love for this tiny being lived in my heart. Every smile, even in her sleep, gave me the strength to wake up again and again. I didn't complain. Yes, I was sleep-deprived, often didn't even have time to eat properly, but I was a happy mom. I believed that my husband and I would get through this difficult period together, supporting each other. I thought he understood. Right now, my days belonged to our daughter. I was sure we now had a real family, with a place only for love and mutual care. At first, it seemed like he was really trying to help. He brought me bottles of water, approached when I was rocking our daughter, and sometimes even cooked something simple for dinner. I believed he felt this new stage of life as strongly as I did. But with each passing week, something changed. His gaze grew colder. He rarely held the baby, as if he was afraid of her fragility or just didn't want to exert effort. He started staying late at work, explaining it was due to an influx of tasks. And when he came home, he looked irritated and tired, although it seemed I should have been the one feeling that way. One day, when I was complaining about sleeplessness yet again, he snapped, "All you do is sit at home. I work to support the family, and you constantly look worn out." His words cut painfully deep. I tried to explain that the baby took all my energy, that I didn't even have time for myself. But he just shrugged. And then came what I still remember as a stab in the back. He looked at me condescendingly and said, "You've changed. You're not who you used to be. You've gained weight. You've stopped taking care of yourself." I froze. Words stuck in my throat. Yes, my body looked different after childbirth, and I knew it. But wasn't that natural? Wasn't he supposed to be the one supporting me when I gave all my strength to our daughter every day? I stood in the middle of the kitchen, holding a feeding bottle, and felt something cracking in my chest. I tried to smile, to answer calmly, but tears were already in my eyes. Since then, I started noticing more small jabs. "You look tired. Maybe you could go to the gym when there's time. You completely forgot that you are a woman." His indifference and criticism became worse than any fatigue from sleepless nights. Because physical pain could be endured, but this emptiness in the soul, no. I tried to convince myself that his words were just fatigue, that he was also going through a difficult period of adaptation. But something in his behavior began to worry me more and more. He started looking at his phone differently. He used to leave it anywhere, on the kitchen table, on the couch, even in the bathroom. But now he always kept it with him. If I took his phone to check the time or respond to a message from relatives, he reacted sharply. "Why are you going through my things? Everyone should have personal space." He had never said that before. I started noticing that he was staying late at work more often. Sometimes he came back late at night, as if he really was working overtime. But his shirt didn't smell like the office. It smelled like a light feminine perfume, not mine. I asked directly, "Where have you been for so long?" He smiled a tired smile and replied, "My colleagues and I were closing a project. It's better for you if I earn more." His words sounded convincing, but inside me, something was already scratching nervously. At night, when I fed our daughter, thoughts swirled in my head. What if he really found someone else? What if I'm no longer the only one for him? But I quickly chased these thoughts away. I couldn't believe he was capable of that. We waited for this child together. We dreamed of our future. However, small details continued to torment me. A new password on his phone, his sharp mood swings, an absent look when he sat at the table, estrangement in bed when he turned away without even touching me. I began to feel like a stranger in my own home. And the scariest thing was that I didn't know was it my imagination or the truth that was about to destroy my life. It happened on a very ordinary evening. Our daughter woke up again in the middle of the night crying as usual. I got up, wrapped in a warm robe, picked her up, and started quietly rocking her. My husband didn't even stir. He lay next to me, fast asleep, as if the crying baby didn't concern him at all. I walked around the room, pressing the tiny body to my chest, and the same thoughts swirled in my head: his coldness, indifference, late returns. When my daughter finally fell asleep, I put her in her crib. Sleep wouldn't come. I quietly took his phone, which he carelessly left on the nightstand. My heart was beating so loudly that I was afraid it would wake him. I hesitated for a long time. What if I'm wrong? What if there's nothing there? But some force made me swipe my finger across the screen. The password was different. Not the one it used to be. I had to try several times until I found the right one, a date that turned out not to be our anniversary, but a completely different one. When the screen unlocked, my hands trembled. I immediately saw the messages. A chat with a woman hung at the top, an icon with a bright smile. The first message cut my eyes. Thanks for last night. You are so tender. It's a pity you couldn't stay the night. I gasped. I reread these lines again and again, hoping it was some mistake. But it got worse. When will we see each other again? I miss you. Your little princess is waiting for you. He called another woman a princess while I was standing by the crib with our daughter in my arms. The world around me collapsed. There was only one scream in my head. How could he? I dropped the phone, pressed my hands to my face so as not to scream and wake the baby. Tears flowed in a torrent. This was the moment everything broke. Not just our marriage, I broke inside. I sat on the floor in the dark, listening to my daughter's even breathing, and tried to understand. What did I do wrong? Why now, when I gave everything, even myself, for him and the baby to be happy? That night, I lost faith in him forever. I sat on the floor, in the dark, with a phone that seemed like cold proof of my naivety. I reread those messages again and again, as if I were torturing myself. Every word hit my chest harder than a punch. Tender, miss you, princess. I saw these lines before my eyes even when I deleted them from the smartphone. They cut into my brain, my soul, my heart. I looked back at the crib where my daughter was peacefully sleeping. She is so tiny, so defenseless. I remembered how in the maternity ward I prayed for her to be born healthy. I remembered every minute of pain, every tear, every moment of fear, and I realized he betrayed not just me. He betrayed her. Because while I was rocking the baby at night, he was hugging someone else. While I was learning to feed her, forgetting my own needs, he was giving tenderness to the one who had never felt the pain of childbirth or sleepless nights. A wave of hatred, despair, and helplessness rose within me. I wanted to scream, to wake him up and throw those messages in his face. But I didn't do it. I just clenched my fists and bit my lips until they bled, so as not to burst into tears. Questions swirled in my head. Am I such a bad wife? Was my love not enough? Didn't he see how hard I was trying, how I gave every last bit of myself? And then came an even scarier realization. He hadn't even hidden everything too carefully. That meant he didn't care if I found out. He had already decided that my feelings were worthless. I sat there and felt my soul cracking. Tears flowed uncontrollably. I couldn't stop them. This wasn't just a husband's betrayal. This was a betrayal of family, home, our shared dreams. It was the betrayal of a woman who had just given life for a new person. That night, I understood. The happiness I believed in was an illusion. And all that remained was the pain tearing me apart from the inside. In the morning, I woke up exhausted, although I hadn't closed my eyes almost all night. Our daughter was sleeping in the bassinet, and I sat on the bed looking at my husband. He was stretched out on the pillow, calm, content, as if his life was flawless. Everything inside me was boiling. I couldn't stay silent anymore. Tell me the truth, I started quietly, barely holding back the tremor in my voice. He opened his eyes, looked at me in surprise. "What are you talking about? Is there someone else?" I said it directly. My voice broke, but there was so much pain in my eyes that he couldn't help but notice. He looked away. I saw his jaw clench, his fingers grip the blanket. "You're imagining things," he mumbled. "It's just your hormones after childbirth." "Don't you dare say that," I interrupted sharply. "I know everything. I saw the messages." His face changed. He froze for a moment, then sighed and said almost calmly, "Well, fine. Yes, there is." It felt as if the floor disappeared beneath my feet. Even despite the evidence, I hoped until the last moment that he would deny everything, that he would say, "It's a joke, it's a colleague, it's a misunderstanding." But he didn't even try to make excuses. "How could you?" I whispered, feeling my eyes fill with tears again. He just shrugged. "I'm lacking attention. You're all about the baby. You forgot you have a husband." His words cut sharper than a knife. "Lacking attention?" I felt anger boiling in my chest. "I just gave birth to your child. I don't sleep at night. I can barely stand on my feet during the day, and you decided to seek attention from someone else." He didn't answer. He just turned away and remained silent. I saw there was no remorse in his eyes, only coldness and self-justification. And then I understood we were no longer on the same side. In that moment, he ceased to be my husband. He became a stranger. After that conversation, something finally broke in me. I tried to hold on for a few more days, convincing myself that it was all a dream, a terrible nightmare from which I would soon wake up. But the reality was even worse. He continued to behave indifferently. He didn't apologize, didn't try to explain or justify himself. On the contrary, he walked around the house as if nothing had happened. He played the role of a father for a few minutes. He'd pick up our daughter, take a photo, post it on social media, and then disappear again, as if he hadn't been there at all. I sat in the dark at night and thought, what now? Could I live next to him, knowing that his heart and body belonged to another? Did I want my daughter to grow up seeing a betrayer father next to her, for whom attention was more valuable than family? The answer came painfully but clearly, no. One evening, when he left again to stay late at work, I took his bag and started packing his things. Every shirt, every pair of socks seemed like fragments of a ruined life. My hands trembled, but I continued. I knew if I didn't do this now, I would remain a victim. And then he would walk back and forth, lie, devalue me even more. And I would turn into a shadow of the woman I once was. When he returned, I was waiting for him at the threshold. Our daughter was sleeping in the other room. A suitcase stood in the hallway. "What is this?" He stopped, looking at me with disbelief. I took a deep breath and said, "These are your things. Take them and go." He initially laughed, thinking it was just another emotional scene. "Are you serious? Over a little affair? You're exaggerating." "It's not an affair. It's a betrayal. It's a knife in the back. I won't allow my daughter to see her mother suffer because of a man who doesn't value her." My words made him fall silent. I saw not remorse in his eyes, but anger. He picked up the bag, abruptly pulled the zipper, and mumbled, "You'll regret this." I didn't answer. I just closed the door behind him. And for the first time in a long time, I felt, yes, I was in pain, but there was strength in that pain. I was left alone with our daughter in my arms. Lonely, but free. The first weeks without him were terrifying. I was left alone with a small daughter, and it seemed the world had fallen on my shoulders. I lacked money, strength, and support. I cried at night, but every morning I got up for her sake. In time, I began to feel stronger. My mother and sister helped, and friends supported me with kind words. Our daughter gave me the most strength. Her smile made me forget the fatigue. I learned to cope with everything on my own, building a new life step by step. And one day I realized, yes, I was in pain, but I wasn't broken. I became different, a strong woman and a loving mother. Several months passed. Life was gradually getting back on track. I had already learned to live without him. I worked remotely to support myself and my daughter. I got used to not having a man's shoulder next to me, but there was a certain freedom in that, too. I felt like I was starting to breathe again. And just then, he appeared. It was a Sunday evening. I was returning from a walk with my daughter, stroller, bags of groceries, a slight fatigue. And suddenly, I saw him near our house. He was standing with a bouquet of roses in his hands, looking depressed yet determined. "Hello," he said quietly when I stopped. "Can we talk?" My heart clenched. A part of me wanted to turn around and leave. Another demanded to hear what he had to say. We went up to the apartment. I put our daughter in her crib, and he stood in the middle of the room, holding the bouquet like a shield. His eyes were red, as if he hadn't slept for several nights. "I made a mistake," he began. "The biggest one in my life. I was a fool. I thought I was missing something, but in reality, I had everything. I had you. I had our daughter. And I destroyed it." I was silent. His words cut painfully across my heart because they were too late. "I miss you both. I can't live without you. Give me another chance. I'll fix everything." His voice trembled and sincerity resonated in it. But I saw deeper. I saw not despair over a lost family, but the fear of being alone. I looked at him and felt emptiness. Somewhere in the past, I would have melted at his words, hugged him, forgiven him. But now, that trust was no longer in me. "You're asking for a second chance," I said quietly. "But I'm no longer the woman you betrayed. Something died in me that night when I read your messages. And what died won't be reborn." He held his head in his hands, sinking into a chair. "Please. I'm ready to start over." I shook my head. "You can only start over when your heart is whole. Mine is broken. And I don't want to give it to you again, only for you to trample on it a second time." Silence hung between us. Only our daughter's quiet breathing could be heard in the next room. "You can always see her," I added. "But there is no longer a place for you in my life." He didn't say another word. He just placed the bouquet on the table and left, quietly closing the door behind him. I walked over to my daughter, touched her little hand, and felt a sense of calm spread through my chest. Yes, I was left without a husband. But I saved myself. And now I knew for sure, she and I could do anything. Now, when I look back, I understand that betrayal after childbirth is a double blow. It's a betrayal not only of the woman, but also of the entire family, the child, our future. It's a moment when your heart shatters into pieces, and it seems it will never heal. But even in the greatest darkness, there is light. For me, that light became my daughter. Her smile, her laughter, her tiny hands hugging me, gave me the strength to live on. I learned to value myself, to love myself, and to choose a life where I am respected. I want to tell everyone who hears this story, no one deserves betrayal. No one should tolerate humiliation, even for the sake of family. It's better to be alone than next to someone who doesn't appreciate your efforts, your love, your sacrifice. I chose a new path, a path of love, strength, and dignity. My daughter and I began our new life, and every day I become more convinced. Happiness is possible even after the greatest disappointment. Remember, your worth is not measured by how someone treats you. You are worthy of respect, happiness, and true love. Sometimes, for that, you need to close the door on the past and bravely walk forward.